I decided I would make a video in my main study. I call this my main study because I have our library is down in the lower level of our house. We have an open basement, so if you were to go down the stairs, you would come into the lower level, which goes out into the backyard. There's windows down there. You can go out. Our house is on a slope, so the backyard can be accessed downstairs to the back doors, and you can open windows. But the lower level is where we keep most of the library. When we've lived in this house going on 25 years, when we moved here, our children were like in elementary school. Now they're grown, married, having children, and so now the lower level has been occupied by me, Pop. But I have this main study. When the kids are growing up, this is where I would retreat after work, and I would close the door. I used to have in this main study a stereo, but now, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I bought a brand new stereo system, which I keep out in the living room. And but when the kids were growing up, I had a stereo in here, and I would listen to my CDs on my earphones. I still have a CD player. Yeah, I have in my main study a couple of thousand CDs. Not only do I collect used books, but I collect CDs. And that's one thing I'm going to start doing, is mentioning the CDs that I have been recently bought, or that I'm listening to, or what I've been listening to today. Now, I don't listen to music all day long, but today I was out. I had to go out to get bird seed. And when I was out, I listened to Zome. Zome is like really brutal, industrial, hardcore death metal. And this is Zoom, and the CD is called Flesh Assimilation by Zome, Z-O-M. I listened to that today in the car. Now, I have an old Dodge van that I had for about 24 years. It doesn't have a stereo. The radio doesn't work. But today, when I was out doing errands, I drove my wife's car. She has a Subaru station wagon, which has a nice CD player. So I can, when I drive her car, I can listen to CDs. And so I listened to Zome, and then I listened to Black Funeral, Aku and the Death Fire. So that's what I listened today when I was out driving around the wasteland. And when I was out, I had to get birdseed at this feed store that sells, birdseed and all kinds of. It's like a seed store in Zeeland, which is the next town north of us here in Holland. And when I was coming home, I stopped at not used book sales, but thrift stores. Like I stopped in Zeeland, there was a used books. No, there was a thrift store that sells goods for Guatemala to raise money for mission work in Guatemala, Central America. And I stopped there when I'm in Zealand getting birdseed. I stopped there and looked at their books. And I found one book at the Zealand, and what I found was this Stalin in Power. The Revolution from Above, 1928 to 1941. This is a biography on Joseph Stalin by Richard C. Tucker. Now, I realized later on that this is, I think, a second volume in a 3-volume series. But that's what it says on the internet. But this looks like, when I looked at it, it looked like it was just, one volume. But supposedly he did a 3-volume. I think he was working on the 3-volume of a biography of Joseph Stalin when he died. So I found that. And then as I was driving home, I stopped at Goodwill and I found what I find. Can't see it. Where is it? I don't. Well, for some reason it's not here. I don't know where it went. Anyway, I found a book that was titled. I'll look in my diary. It was a YA. It was young adult. It was called Bloodtide. Fantasy novel by Melvin Burgess. It was so I bought that. And usually I don't buy fantasy or a YA, but it looked interesting. It was called Bloodtide. I don't know why I don't have it here. I must have taken it downstairs. Anyway, then on the way home I stopped at Bibles to Mexico and found a novel by Claire Messud, When the World Was Steady. And I also found Benjamin Black. This is a pen name for the British writer John Banfield. This is his, he goes on, these are like detective kind of crime mysteries. This is by Benjamin Black, which is the pen name for John Banfield. This is Elegy for April. Now I have, here's that, Bloodtide. There it is, Melvin Burgess. Yeah, it says here, the time is not too distant future. London is in ruins, a bombed out shell, a picked over carcass where the only rule of law is might makes right. What remains of the city is being fought over by two ruthless gangs of warlords. In an effort to create peace, however, a truce between the two families is suggested by Val, patriarch of the Volson clan. His collateral, the hand of his 14-year-old daughter, Signe, in marriage to the blood rival Connor, a rebellious, headstrong teenager who has dreamed all her life of joining her father's forces as a soldier in the war against Congor. Signe is stunned by the announcement. To agree to such a plan as unthinkable. Congor is her mortal enemy. To live as his wife is no better than to live as a slave for the rest of her life. But what of the alternative? Does she dare defy her father? And what of the consequences of her rebellion? Her decision will set in motion a series of events both horrifying and tragic that will change her life forever. Melvin Burgess has fashioned a powerfully dystopian vision of a young woman's coming of age against the backdrop of war that is shocking, harrowing, and compelling. So yeah, it had, like here in the back, the Sunday Observer, magnificent drama, The Guardian, straddling a dystopian future in myth-ridden past. Bloodtide is a savage story of betrayal, passion, hatred, and the corrupting nature of power. Bloodtide shies from nothing, making it both cruel and magnificent. So it was only like, I think I paid $1 for it. So, but going back to Benjamin Black, I collect him. I have The Death in Summer by Benjamin Black. Christine Falls by Benjamin Black. And I have Vengeance by Benjamin Black. And I have The Silver Swan by Benjamin Black. So now I got these in the Benjamin Black mystery detective kind of crime series. maybe someday I'll get around to reading them. As you know, my hobby is to collect writers. I find a writer and then I go out and I try to collect all their books. As I mentioned, I bought today Claire Messud, When the World Was Steady. I have also her novel The Woman Upstairs by Claire Messud. And she wrote, this one I always wanted to read. I've gotten out many times. This is her novel, The Emperor's Children, Claire Messud. And I have this novel by her, The Last Life. So yeah, so that's my hobby, to go out to thrift stores, go to used book sales, and try to find all the books that a certain writer has written. If they've written novels, essays, poetry, criticism, essays, memoirs, letters. That's what I do. That's part of my hobby. That's how I get out of the house. If it wasn't going out looking for used books, I probably would never leave the house because there's just no reason to. So besides that, what else I did today? Oh, I mentioned I've been reading Serena still. I read a little bit of this today by Ram Rash. And this morning, I read this evening, Hermeneutics as Apprenticeship, How the Bible Shapes Our Interpretive Habits and Practices by David R. Starling. And I read this evening, God Has Spoken in His Son, A Biblical Theology of Hebrews by Peter T. O'Brien. So yeah, and I haven't been mentioning, but I have been reading these essays by Arnold Bronke, Sea Battles in Dry Land. I read those too in the evening. So I've been reading that also. As far as my diary, today I ended on page 814. So yeah, so in this main study, you can see books. You can see books up there. Up there is Proust. You can see over there, there's James Joyce. There's Kerouac. And there's my wall clock. It's going on 8:05 at night. You know, I keep in here, books like biographies like Margaret Fuller, who was the American transcendentalist, along with Emerson and Thoreau. And this is a biography of Margaret Fuller, A New American Life by Megan Marshall. I also have this biography on Margaret Fuller, The Lives of Margaret Fuller by John Matteson. I have books like that. I have biographies on Jack Kerouac. The Voice is All, The Lonely Victory of Jack Kerouac by Joyce Johnson. And I have one of my favorite books is The Carthusian Spirituality, The Writings of Hugh of Balma and Guigo de Ponte. I should read this again. It's been a while since I've gotten into some mystical theology. One of my favorite Jack Kerouac books is The Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac. So, I have things like that. This is my my hat from Taos, New Mexico. We were out there a couple of years ago when our second son lived in New Mexico. I bought this in Taos. This is my New Mexico hat. And what else? It just goes on and on. I keep commentaries in here, like Commentary on Romans by Charles H. Talbert. So yeah, and I keep CDs in here. You can see CDs there, CDs there. I keep CDs in there, things like that. And so this is my main study. This is where I come to, look at my granddaughters. This is our granddaughter Margaret Lynch. This is our granddaughter Louisa May Lynch. And this is pictures of them that I keep looking at. My daughter is pregnant with her third child. This is our other granddaughter of our oldest son, Caleb. This is Josephine Joy. So yeah, I can come here and look at pictures of my family, of my granddaughters. And I got pins. I got my diary. I got my cameras. I got my Bibles. I got books, a new book on Stalin and power. So that's what's going on here today in my book world. I'm hoping you're having a good week, and do thank you for all the new subscribers, and feel free to comment and to ask me questions. And until next time, bye.